But Brendan, I'm glad you asked that question because as I was trying to figure out how to like teach, at one point I was also taking some drum lessons. And in that process of taking drum lessons, that's kind of when everything clicked for me. I thought, why are why are like why are we not teaching strumming and right hand stuff and rhythm like drum lessons are done? Because all of that to me was like it was counting and coordination and rhythms. But for whatever reason, like on guitar, we kind of tend to focus less on the right hand and the rhythm, and we focus more on where we put our fingers and like how to create single notes and scales and chords, which is all important, obviously. But I definitely saw kind of a gap in how to teach strumming. So what I started doing, and like most of my students, that's what they really wanted to do in the front end too. They wanted to learn how to strum songs and play their favorite stuff. So, single note stuff is great for finger coordination and getting you started. But then when it comes to the strumming, I felt like there was a huge gap. And this is how I bridged the gap so that students could start playing songs a little bit quicker, which is really understanding what's going on with your right hand and how to coordinate chord changes with it. So that's kind of where it all came together. Um, so I really kind of prioritize like the strumming and counting and rhythms, chord changes, and playing songs. And like I think even focusing on that rhythm stuff in the front end when it comes to strumming eventually translates to the ability to play solos smoother because you are focused on timing and you kind of already have that built in. So I don't know, Tony, if you can like kind of speak on that since like you're the shredder and like some of those crazy rhythms
Yeah.
that you do with soloing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I was in college, we did like a lot of rhythmic dictation where they would like play or clap out a rhythm and you would have to like write it out and stuff like that. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely super useful. I mean, even if you're like not going into it thinking about exactly what the rhythm is, like if you've done that, if you've had that experience, like you're just going to pick things up a lot quicker. You're going to hear it and be like, oh, yeah, that's what that is, and just be able to like recreate it.
Yeah, and I found from teaching rhythms like this, it made me way better at listening to a song and being able to pick out the rhythm because I was so used to counting the rhythms when it comes to working with students in like a really simple way, that some of these more complex rhythms that occur in songs, I found it a little bit easier to figure out how to translate them. Plus, then I had a way to explain it to the students because the students already understood how to essentially read and translate rhythms. So anyway, that's kind of where this all came from. Hindsight, and it's really only been in the last few years that I realized like, oh, this is what I've been doing, and this is like maybe some of the reason why it's working with students. It's because when I present this material, what I've always done is I've kind of done it in this three-part process where it's like, and I'll go through all this, but part one is I'm writing the counting underneath the first measure of each exercise. And then part two, I'm getting the student counting that rhythm with me. And then part three is they're moving their hand with the rhythm and the counting. And that all happens before they actually play it. And so what I realized was happening, and again, I've been teaching it this way for like literally 20 years, right? And it's only been the last few years that I realized like, oh, that so there's like different learning styles. And that process that I was using is kind of hitting on three different styles of learning or ways of presenting material for learners. And when we don't know what what learning style really resonates with a student, we're kind of just guessing, right? But the in doing it this way, having like three different approaches, which like the first one would be like visual learning, writing that the counting uh, with with the notes that are on the staff. that's a visual thing, right? So we can hit visual learners with that. That second part where you're counting, that's called audiation. So audiation, for anyone who doesn't know, that's where it's essentially like hearing something in your head before you actually play it, or you know what you want it to sound like, so the audiation is the counting. And then the movement of that right hand while counting, that's kind of kinesthetic learning, which involves like movement. So everyone learns differently, and students are not usually going to be like, oh, hey, I'm really a kinesthetic learner, can you show me this? Like that. They don't know, we don't know. So by presenting it in these different ways, I found that over time, like, one of those is usually going to connect, and then the other two is going to support like what they connect with. So that process of continually doing each exercise the exact same way reinforces it. And I mean, I think that's why like this has been working for me. um all right, I'm gonna, like, ultimately I'm gonna go kind of like section by section in the book, but before I get into like how I kind of go through that process, do you guys have any questions on anything so far? If you guys are looking at like in the book, it would be page 9. It's basically the very first rhythm section or rhythm page. And then if you're
This
following
is in
along,
the actual book or the instructor manual.
yeah, the actual book. What I'll do is I'll kind of go through the process, and then in the instructor companion guide, it would be, let's see. Well, everything I just said would be considered establishing the process. Um, and that's kind of the visual audiation, the kinesthetic. So how I would do like the first exercise, right? So first off, I would just, in that very first measure, so this is on page 9 of the book, Basic Strumming Part 1. What I would normally do is I would write 1, 2, 3, 4, right underneath that first whole note in the first measure, and then either circle the 1 or underline the 1. And that's just kind of the visual cue for the student to know, okay, I'm strumming on the 1 beat, and then I'm just going to let it ring. Okay. So then once I've sort of, obviously you're going to explain like, well, what is a whole note, right? I'm kind of glossing over that and just kind of getting into the mechanics. But that would be like the first part of the visual process. Then when I get to the audiation, you guys hear that?
Yep.
Okay. So when I get to the audiation, I have the student hold the guitar. They're not actually going to be playing yet. But what I would do is I would have them start to move their hand, like just down and up. And then we would count 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And like repetition is important, right? So, and I know this seems super, super basic, but again, establishing how everything goes from here makes a world of difference, because they're doing the exact same thing every time. So you're getting them like just saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 with you as you're saying it too. I've even suggested students kind of bounce their hand to sort of keep that beat going, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And then obviously doing that is the kinesthetics also. So like before they're even moving their hand, you're counting it. Then the kinesthetics is the bouncing the hand. And then when you get to actually strumming, then they're doing the exact same thing, same tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. And you guys have seen it. You'll know if they're hitting it, if they're missing it. And obviously with whole notes, the bar is pretty low. But when you've got a beginner, you just reinforce that stuff. Okay, so that's what I would do with whole notes. Then I'd kind of do the same exact process with the next one, number 2, with half notes, full well knowing that this is going to take a super long time with a beginner, but again, building on everything, right? So we're creating sort of a scaffolding so that they know that they're expected to first write it out, then count it, then they're going to move their hand before they even strum. So with number 2, I do kind of the same thing, but I would line up the numbers. So I would put like the 1 right underneath the first half note, then write 2, then the 3 under the second half note, then write 4, circle the 1, circle the 3. Again, that gives them those cues on where they're strumming when they're playing half notes. And then we would count it together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then have them move their hand again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then finally get them to strum. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. By the way, I don't have them use any other chords at this point. I mean, I personally like to start with D and E minor as my first chords, but like obviously you guys can, you know, do what feels right. But those are like my preferred. Then I continue that same process throughout like all of these. Obviously, as you sort of look through, the next one's going to be super easy because you're going to have quarter notes. And so you're writing out 1, 2, 3, 4, you're circling each one, you're having them like do the counting, you're having them go through the kinesthetic part, you're having them strumming, they're strumming on every beat. And then the next few, for beginners, a little bit more challenging, but you go through that same process every single exercise. I mean, it's rare that I've had students who, honestly, if we start with this, it's pretty rare that I've had students get through that first page in one lesson. It has happened, but I mean, I've found that like the students just, again, beginners, they need those repetitions. Before I'd even go to like the next page, well, actually, the next page in the book sort of explains how to do chord changes. So that's in there. So like you can kind of read through that. But I'll give you sort of an example of what I do when I do chord changes. So first off, throughout that first page, I typically, again, would use D and then maybe show them an E minor also. Not worried about chord changes, but just giving them like different options for chords to try. Then when it does come time to chord changes, I go all the way back to those whole notes. And my thought process with that is when you've got whole notes, you're only strumming on that one beat, and then you've got 3 beats for the kids to move their fingers, right? So if you get someone who's like really slow at making a chord change, like I've even told them, start moving your fingers on the 2 beat, so that by the time you get to the 1 beat of the next measure, your fingers are in place. Slow the tempo down as much as you need to so that they can make that chord change in time. So what I do is I do like 2 measures of each chord and then repeat. So the example in the book is D and E minor. And we go through that process again, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I'll tell them, start moving your fingers here, E minor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Back to D, move those fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And then that way you can sort of like, you can play with it, push that beat where they start moving their fingers closer and closer to the 4 or even to the 1 of the next measure. So that there's a little bit of urgency there, maintaining like, and I always play with them so that they feel like they have to change. Because what we want to avoid is like the old 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Got it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like I know you guys have seen that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we want to avoid that. Um, and then you can speed up the tempo. Like if they're doing it well, speed up the tempo. And then try it with half notes. Same process, except now what you're doing is you're kind of creating more urgency for them to change chords. So still same two chords, D and E minor, but two measures on each. So that means that when they strum that three beat on the second measure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, they have to start changing 1, 2, 3, 4, and then repeat. Um, so when it comes to chord changes, and there's like, I think in the instructor guide, there's other suggested exercises. I generally don't go to quarter notes after half notes. What I'll do is I'll go to something like exercise number 4, where exercise number 4 on page 9, you've you've got another half note at the end of that measure. So again, they've got two beats to make that chord change. So in my mind, that's kind of like that next level of complication where the rhythm on the right hand is a little bit more complicated. 1, 2, 3, but the strumming is and the chord changes is the same because they're still changing on half notes. Let me see what else. What else? Oh, um, I mean, I'll just kind of like I'll mention it really quick. So that's the chord changes. Thoughts or comments from any of you guys? Questions with the chord changes?
I
Okay.
just oh, sorry.
No, Cole, go ahead.
I just wanted to say real quick that this is similar to how I've been doing it. The way you just explained the chord changes, and it's been working really well. This is a great book, and that number. It's funny that this number 4 exercise is specifically something that kind of gets them through to make the one for the next measure. The chord change on the one. And so I just want to say that I've had a lot of luck with this particular exercise here.
Again, I have yet to run across anyone who can't do this, but I've definitely seen like some people who struggle. And
Yeah,
and I do think like, okay, well, in those situations, well, what are we here for? Well,
yeah,
we're here to try and figure it out for them, help them see like and troubleshoot how do we get them over that hump? Because yeah, the ones rhythm comes easy for them, cool, let's keep going. It's fun, it's easy to do. um yeah, so again, the hope is like having this process helps. Okay, so I'm going to move on a little bit. Not really going to talk much about, let's see, next in the book is like rests. Just real quick note, when I do rests, keeping in mind the idea of like having some sort of process, the visual, the audiation, and then the kinesthetics. I've tried to develop different things to do in all of those learning styles so that the students have something to kind of focus on. So, as a for instance, like number 1 on page 13 has the 3 quarter notes and then a quarter rest. Well, when I'm writing it out, I'm writing 1, 2, 3, and then I'm physically writing the word rest underneath that. So then when they count that, I have them say rest instead of 4, like
yeah,
1, 2, 3, rest, 1, 2. So it's a placeholder. And then kinesthetics, same thing, 1, 2, 3, rest. And I like to use that like the palm. So the rest isn't just like this like nebulous thing that sort of exists there, but there's a purpose and something you have to do. So then same thing with like a half rest. So down on number 5, 1, 2, rest, rest, 1, 2, rest, rest, 1, 2, rest, rest, 1, 2, rest, rest. So giving them something to do on that beat that's going to be consistent with everything that we taught them previously. Um, okay, and then skipping forward, like you can use that one with the half rest, that's a great one to focus on with chord changes too, because you've got 2 beats where students can use that 2 beats of time to make a chord change. Um, won't really talk much about the dotted half notes other than to say you do it exactly the same way, right? So number one on the dotted half note page, which is page 17, you would write 1, 2, 3, 4. You circle the 1 and circle the 4, the 1 being where they would strum on the dotted half note, the 4 being where they would strum on the the quarter note at the end of the measure.